when last we left our intrepid adventurers, 2 of them had already had their brains eaten, and the fight had been joined.
Right, and their players were eager to see the rest of the party fail.
It was an interesting scenario. I mean, we've been longing to have an intra-party fight for a long time now.
It's been a long time since the pillow fight for leadership.
Oh, yeah. And the room where everyone fights each other for no reason was slightly disappointing in that it didn't completely dominate us. It just made us throw attacks at each other every once in a while. Mm-hmm. Which was fun in its own way. Aurora ate my ear. That was pretty cool. But yeah, this time it was actual,
Mind flayers.
Yeah. And the thing is, knowing the situation they were in, they were slightly sympathetic villains. I mean, granted, they eat people's brains. Mm-hmm. But the brain eating aside,
right,
they're actually sympathetic because they're in a bad situation, and they'd like to get out of it. They're getting out of it via brain eating, but nobody's perfect. So the situation, the fight we were in, I had a plan that I've been working on for some time to try and basically one-shot the party, and I tried executing that plan, and it almost worked. Darn it, almost. But I flubbed the roll.
At 3.
Yep. When I attacked Serendipity, I wasn't able to put her to sleep, and that was especially.
You didn't say her name.
Vengold, Strider Malor, Toppler, Tower, Shepherd of Souls, Strider, and Doom Delair. There we go. Yeah. My brain's been eaten, alright? I'm a mind flayer.
I was wondering if you were just playing up the fact that you no longer care.
So the gnome didn't fall asleep.
Mm-hmm. The gnome of crits.
She's kind of the linchpin of this whole thing. Mm-hmm. A, she's critting everything, so she's tremendously dangerous. And B, she's got the secret of time travel, and we need that. We are completely hooped at this point. We're in the worst situation. We know time future knowledge stuff, but we don't have Panadar securely in our possession, and we don't have the knowledge to use Panadar securely in our possession. Cricket can probably figure it out after a while, but she probably doesn't have time before she ceases to exist. So we need Serendipity, and unfortunately she's in play. We did manage to take down Aram Ben-Jarrad. I can't remember, who was it took him down? Was it Hank?
No, it was just all of the thralls just beat on him, and they hit really hard.
Yeah.
Right, because they got that psychokinesis.
Yeah, they hit like a hunk of steel when they punch you with their hand.
Yeah, so they focus fired on Aram Ben-Jarrad and took him down. Knocked him out, that is, of course. It was great. Both sides were going for non-lethal.
Yeah.
No one wanted to kill anyone. So, next round, Serendipity gets to go. Of course, she rolled a 20 on her initiative check.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we actually split off from group initiative.
Yep.
We normally do group initiative, but this is exactly the case where we had to roll individual initiative.
Yeah, and of course, Serendipity rolls 20s on everything, so... And her initiative is really high to begin with, because she's our initiative champion.
Right. Now, we talked a little bit about... Does your enlisted have a name?
Something incomprehensible.
Like all the
Yeah.
Let's call him Bob.
Oh, well, that's weird, because Bob is the player of Hank.
Okay. Let's call him...
Tim.
You could call your mind player. I was calling him Brian's mind player. You could just call them Brian and Bob, since Brian and Bob were playing mind players
That's
that
a
were
good
controlling
point.
Brian and Bob's character.
All right.
I think that's really not good, though.
How about Wybram and Bob? Ah, damn. Well, I was going to ask about the... Man, we really need a pseudonym for him.
Well?
How about Pseudo?
I was calling him Brian's mind player. I guess
Let's
that's
just
kind
keep
of lame.
calling him Brian's mind player.
All right. So Brian's mind flayer, he has this cricket knowledge, which is subverting the hive mind, and cricket has the ability to telepathy, right?
You're thinking of the amulet that she had,
right?
That we thought of, but that
I wasn't actually physically wearing it at the time because I've got a periapt, which is my combat next slot
right.
item.
So you haven't had a moment to consider that, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I've considered it, but the thing is, I'm not wearing it right now, and I kind of need it. It's an emergency combat device, so it's for if things go weird and I wind up, whatever. It's something to keep in mind, but not something useful right now. It also only works blind of effect,
Right.
And so,
Okay, so the next round.
Yeah. So next round, Serendipity, Vengulsar, Mulor, Toppler, Tower, Shepherd, Soul, Strides, Time, Doom Delayer, High Initiative Monster goes first. And,
she mind controls them all.
yes, she does. She uses the thing that makes a fake thing that everyone is drawn to.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because everyone was saying, come on to the temple, come to the temple. So she made a fake entrance to the temple. I was like, and everyone's like, come to the temple, and they all start running towards the fake entrance to the temple.
But of course, it's a critical hit on everyone. And the special effect of a critical hit, she traded 6 dice, dominated for the rest of the combat.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It was save ends.
The same ends?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, still.
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. 1 round, rest of combat. So everyone runs to the fake temple and is immobilized. And they're all dominated.
Yeah.
Except Cricket, because she's a PC, so the special crit table effects don't affect her.
Right. And
also, that periapt I mentioned, I use that to dismiss the immobilization next round. So it doesn't really affect me much. But everyone else is dominated.
Which comes up on their turn after the rest of the party is gone.
Right.
But, yeah, every single end.
Brawl, yeah.
Yeah, so I go next because I rolled really high in my initiative, even though my base is just decent. So I dismiss my immobilize, and I run over to where Aram Ben-Jarrad has fallen, and I drag him over to the real temple entrance, and I almost get him inside. I'm like literally standing in the doorway, hauling Aram Ben-Jarrad over the rubble.
It would have been even further, but Jarrad had made a wall of sand there, and they had broken it down, but it leaves difficult terrain.
The difficult terrain prevent me from actually getting him inside the temple on my round.
Right.
Then it was Hank's turn.
Yes, it was Hank's turn.
Right.
Then we got to see. Then something happened that has not happened for many moons.
Yeah?
Croesus was bloodied.
Yes.
Wow.
And Tim looked actually concerned.
Yes.
For the first time I've seen him sometime.
So Hank Nova'd on Croesus. Hank, the barbarian striker, standing adjacent to Croesus. It's the classic unstoppable force versus immovable object.
Right.
Croesus is a defend monster, and Hank is the damage dealer.
Yeah.
And Hank used that new paladin ability that he picked up from that Boat of the Earth.
Right.
And like flooded the entire room that they were in. See, Hank's Serendipity, Vengulsar, Mulor, Toppler, Tower, Shepherd, Soul, Strides, Time, Doom Delayer, and Croesus were all off in this little side room. And everyone else was out in the hallway. Big mess happening out in the hallway. So Hank flooded that little room with radiant energy that causes damage if you start your turn there or move into it. Or end your turn there or move into it, yeah. And then he unloaded on Croesus and bloodied him.
Wow.
He used like all of his abilities. He used an action point.
Wow.
He unloaded 2 dailies. I don't remember the details. They were mostly just massive damage things.
Yeah. And the massive damage was getting through.
Part of it was because Cricket had Timeless Trek to Croesus, he hadn't had a turn yet, and so he hadn't got his armor up, which is his like uber ability, which is the one where everything either does half damage or no damage based on a 50% chance.
Okay, yeah.
So that also was critical, but
we didn't take Croesus down.
Right.
And then it was Croesus' turn.
So then he armored up.
He armored up, and then he established his kitchen.
he was pretty upset because, he'd actually been harmed, and he just told them, all right, everyone, stop, just stop it. If anyone does anything, I'm going to hit you. And then he turned invisible.
Right. So, he drank a potion of invisibility. And he established the kitchen, which the actual ability name is Shattered Time or something like that. It's a zone. And it turns out that the reading of the literal reading of the rules is if anyone launches an attack, or is it actually hits?
Anyone who attacks but doesn't include Croesus in the attack, he can teleport next to them and hit them.
As an opportunity attack, not an interrupt.
Right.
That turned out to be very important. All of those details turned out to be very important. So, that was Croesus' turn. Now it is everyone else's turn, the NPC's turn. But they're all dominated, every last one of them, by Serendipity, Vengulsar, Mulor, Toppler, Tower, Doom Delayer. She had each and every one of them attack the guy next to them. Now each of them is launching an attack that doesn't include Grossus.
So Grossus comes and
Grossus
smashes
teleports in
everybody.
next to them and hits each of them as they hit their comrades. And they're hitting them with that heavy-hitting telekinetic pounds. So, yeah.
So they just all start thrashing, and Croesus starts teleporting everywhere and killing them all.
If it was an immediate reaction or interrupt, you can only do one of those.
Right.
But it's an opportunity attack. And you can do as many of those as you can.
Well, one per round. Or one per turn.
One per turn of the other guy that's triggering. Yeah. So everybody gets a hit from Croesus.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone gets a hit from their companion that is hitting them. Now, I can't remember what Cricket did to deserve this, but she triggered a hit from Croesus somehow.
I know, I think it was the hit from the Thrall.
Oh, right. So Serendipity, because Serendipity is dominating one.
Focused all the Thralls on hitting Cricket.
Yeah.
Oh.
So Cricket got taken down.
Right.
They knocked her out. Her head made a resounding clopping sound as they pounded that hollow structure. Anyway, so Cricket got knocked out right on the verge of having gotten around Benjarad. Then it was next turn, and I think basically all of the NPCs were taken down, right?
Yeah, the next turn, they were all badly hurt, and Serendipity fireballed them all and critted them all in the neck.
Right. And that included Hank, and took down Hank. Non-lethally fireballed in the neck. So, the party won. Well, a party won. It was intense. It was one of these things where normally whoever moves first wins.
Right.
But there was just so much heavy hitting and big power in play that it was whoever flubs the first roll loses. And I flubbed the first roll.
Yeah, I think Brian was genuinely disappointed as the tide started turning against the Thralls.
Yeah. Well, I can see both sides of this issue here. I'm not exactly pro-brain eating, but it's a valid viewpoint.
The party regrouped. Croesus went and picked up... No, they healed Gerard with a potion. Or maybe a heal check, I don't remember. And they... Because they don't have a healer. Cricket's their healer.
Yeah.
And they
dragged Cricket and Hank.
They gently lifted Cricket onto a Tensor's floating disc, which apparently they have. And they grabbed Hank like a sack of potatoes and hucked him on there. They were very clear about the distinction.
Meanwhile, the Mind Flayers are also trying to regroup. These weren't all of their thralls. In fact, it wasn't even most of their thralls. They still had a substantial reserve force, but they have them arranged at the exits to try and prevent the party from fleeing.
After that smackdown, it's clear that they don't want to if they just send them in after the party, it'll just be wasting them.
Yeah. So, a bit of an impasse, a terrifying impasse. The Mind Flayers are really freaked out here. They have to catch the party. They can't catch the party. They're going to die if they don't.
Right.
Yeah.
They really want Panadar, and ideally, they want Serendipity's brain.
Yeah.
Critical to their survival now.
Yeah.
Yeah, because...
I mean, if it wasn't for that, they would just be like, how about we just let them go?
Yeah. Yeah.
But
now they have to prevent themselves from using future knowledge.
Yeah. They'll get squished by the Tower of Time. So anyway, the Mind Flayers move their controls. Since Cricket and Hank are unconscious, they relinquish control of those empty husks and move their control over to different thralls. I was eager to continue playing my Mind Flayer, but I wanted to help them out with their fallback regroup thing. But
Brian Flayer and Bob Flayer.
Brian Flayer?
All right, we'll go with that.
Sounds like someone who cuts pickles. Brian Flayer.
So now that they weren't controlling our bodies anymore, and since Cricket and Hank were fresh brains, they hadn't been fully integrated into the elder brain, quote unquote, John gave us an opportunity to make Arcana checks to basically secretly sneak control from where our brains were in the elder brain.
Yeah, using the power of the elder brain
to take over our own bodies. And Cricket actually got a bonus on her check because she has been so adamantly insistent about how you are unauthorized operators of this domestic. You're not allowed to do that. It's ironic. She has the stronger will towards self-determination than Hank does in this case. Enough to get a bonus.
Not self-determination, but certain people determination.
Correct determination.
Yes, correct determination.
She chooses to obey.
Right.
But only the correct people. So anyway, So yeah, I managed the roll. It's not easy. I actually flubbed it the first time round, but the second one I managed. And I managed to get the cricket body to sort of rouse like that. But the problem is I don't have very good control of it because I've never done this before. So I'm role-playing it as sort of the thing like that. Plus, I still have the Ring of Brotherhood on, so Serendipity, Vingolstar, Moor, Topper, Tower Step, Soul Charge, Doomdelayer can automatically know what status effects are on me, and Dominated is a status effect, and I'm still dominated. I'm dominated by Cricket now. But yeah, so I had to try and convince them.
While being barely able to talk.
And still reading as dominated.
Right.
I tried to convince them, well, not convince them, but basically tell them what was up.
I think the key thing was in her, like, well, she was like laying back, like, I just need to tell you. But she demanded or asked, she asked if they could call the tech support line.
Can I please contact the High Priestess at the Temple of Freedom now? And that was like, oh yeah, that's Cricket.
Hank observed Cricket doing this telepathically, and he started trying, and he failed a lot. But eventually, like, it was almost like they'd almost finished talking when Hank finally managed to repossess his own body too. But there are huge penalties on everything because I gave them a -5 because they're like remote controlling their own bodies.
Yeah.
And they already had a -5 because those are the two people with the massive headaches from the knowledge.
I still have the headache. It's not fair. They took the brain out of my skull and it still hurts.
That'll teach you to go messing with Panadars.
I think that the -5 penalty should apply to the Elder Brain as well.
I thought about it.
So
the party has Cricket and Hank back.
Kind of.
I can't believe it. They were just like, well, they're kind of useless now. Oh, they were only at -9 because I only give you a -4. They're kind of useless now. So why don't we do that ritual, drain all their healing surges, and then just throw them in the basement, and then we'll go in and assault the Mind Flayers. I think it was around this time that there was a knock on the door. The first knock on the door.
One of the thralls was politely knocking on the door. Excuse me, adventurers, sir.
We thought we might be able to make a deal, an arrangement.
Yes, they are.
And Croesus, of course, opens the door and says, "There's no deal that's going to happen unless it starts with you returning the brains of our two friends." And he said, "Whoa, great! What a coincidence! Because that's exactly what I was going to propose. Here's the deal: you give us Serendipity's brain, and we'll give back the brains of you two friends."
Yeah.
And
they didn't go for that.
Croesus was just like, no, no, he said, he went on some tirade about how that was evil and bad and slammed the door, and then the thrall was like, that's the stupidest thing I ever heard, and stormed off.
And Cricket is like, maybe Croesus shouldn't be doing the negotiating.
I mean, Aurora's gone, and Cricket is like laying down, barely able to move.
Yeah.
Those are their two diplomatic
guys.
And they don't want them to necessarily know that they have repossessed their bodies.
That's true, yeah. Because then the Elder Brain might try and actively stop us or something.
So once they realized that the Mind Flayers were actually interested in negotiating, and Cricket and Hank had learned some things because they can like hear the telepathic messages going on in the Elder Brain, so they were able to relay that the Mind Flayers were terrified. They needed to have a solution to their time travel problem. They were able to know kind of what was up. So they started thinking about strategies to actually negotiate.
Yeah, what could we offer them that would actually be a good deal for all concerned? And ultimately, I can't remember who it was that came up with it or whatever, if it was a sort of collaborative we discussed until we came up with this. The plan was we would offer them a lift. They give us all our brains back. It's a great opening step. Give us all our brains back, and then we will, using Panadar, take them 117 years into the future, into the present timeline, at which point they will be safe from the time tower, because they'll be past the point where they have any future knowledge.
Now, does Cricket remember anything that Brian Flayer...
Bits. She doesn't know everything that Brian Flayer knows. And I had to compartmentalize a bit there.
Yeah, because Brian Flayer read her mind, but not vice versa. But she can hear all the messages relaying through the Elder Brain.
But Brian Flayer wouldn't have sent certain messages to the Elder Brain, like,
right,
hey, we don't have to cut off our own...
Right,
Well,
the Elder Brain would block those.
He did, because he didn't necessarily know the Elder Brain would block them.
Yeah.
Then they were blocked by the Elder Brain, and he started to realize something was up, right? Like, the Elder Brain is not... Started to doubt that the Elder Brain was good, and started maybe thinking that the heretic might have been telling the truth.
I forgot to mention the heretic. Basically, very few Oods survived the fall of the Ood civilization. It's just a handful, relatively speaking. And so the ones that did survive, their names are now legend. And one of them is this one particular mind flayer who, at the time of the Oodpocalypse, he was a brain-removed beggar on the streets of the city of Impossible. And he was given, like, a prophecy, a warning, to get out of the city. And so, after he survived because he had been forewarned. And he tried to convince the other Ood that had survived that, what had happened, because he claimed to have this knowledge of what had happened. But they didn't believe him. So they were all like, no, we have to cut our brains off. He was like, no, you don't. And they declared him a heretic. He was basically, they figured he might have been responsible somehow. He was trying to finish the job. And so they stoned him to death. But he's now remembered through history as this lone voice that tried to convince them not to cut the brains off. And now Brian Flayer is like, maybe he was correct. Little ripples. Or ripples. So yeah, the thrall at the door. I can't remember what he said that triggered the Elder Brain. I guess Brian Flayer was controlling him?
Yeah, Brian Flayer was controlling him.
Yeah.
And they basically pitched that to them, and he...
Oh yeah, I know why this happened.
...started to say that it was a good idea.
The problem is the Elder Brain doesn't like that, because the Elder Brain is too big to fit in our cart. So we'd have to leave it behind. It's doomed either way.
Yeah, exactly. And it knows that if they go off with these guys, they're going to learn that they don't need to cut their brains off.
Yeah.
So the Mind Flayer started to agree that it was a dwarven thrall, started to agree, and then all of a sudden the dwarven thrall just went limp. And Cricket and Hank were able to tell from the Elder Brain was telling that Mind Flayer to shut up and giving him a mental beating, like a massive
bad
down.
Mind Flayer, bad, wham, wham, wham. But Brian Flayer fought back and managed very briefly to regain control of that thrall and tell the party, basically, I think it's a good idea, but there's a fight going on now. Come to the temple and help.
And Cricket and Hank were able to tell there are some Mind Flayers who are kind of like, they're listening to what Brian Flayer is saying. And there's some that are like, not sure, I think I'll do what the Elder Brain says as long as it's alive because it's scary. And there are some that are like, no, I'm eating brains, this is stupid. So there's 3 factions forming, although one of the factions is just kind of the wuss faction. It'll just go with whoever's winning.
So the party grabs its stuff. Now Hank and Cricket, they're both Serendipity used Tensor's binding on Hank because they were particularly worried since Hank had bloodied Croesus. They didn't want him to have even a moment free again. So Hank is super wrapped up in a magic straitjacket and stuff. Cricket's just tied up, if I remember correctly. They didn't do anything special.
Yeah, they really seemed. Even though I tried to use my DM thing to be they're not gonna get free. They're like, oh, they might. We don't trust you at all.
Well, Hank, they were particularly about. I think Cricket, I'm gonna make a thievery check or something, try and get free. See if I can swing that. I mean, it's a -9, so unlikely. But yeah, they throw us brainless ones on the Tensor's disc. Oh yeah, when they found out we literally had our brains extracted, they were really creeped out by this.
Yeah, they checked it out. Yeah, they have their incisions sealed up with saliva under their hair of where their brain was pulled out from the back.
Yeah, so they're really freaked out by that whole concept. But yeah, so they throw us on the Tensor's disc or whatever, and head over for the temple. And I'm like, finally, you guys are going to the temple.
After all that, they finally get everything. All right, let's go to the temple.
So they go in the hallway, and there's a bunch of thralls out in the hallway. They're all just sort of like, oh, like that, because all the Mind Flayers are busy in actual combat right now.
Right.
So none of the thralls are active. So So we charged into the temple and through a secret door at the back of the temple, which I guess was open or something.
I think either that or you just knew it was there because it wasn't really that important anymore. Like, it would normally be secret when they come in, whatever, but...
And beyond is the great brain room of the Mind Flayers. There's a big circular room, alcoves all around the circle that have the Mind Flayers. They just stand in alcoves all day, I guess. That's what they do. They're like Borg that way.
Yeah, they just stand in the alcoves and they live their life through their thralls.
Yeah. And then, of course, in the middle of the room is a huge pit full of brain. And there's a couple of fresh brains lying on top there. John put markers out, but he didn't identify which is which, so I'm really worried we're going to get the wrong ones in the wrong bodies.
I did mark them differently, so I know which one's which.
Yeah, but we don't know which one's which.
Yeah. Which one looks more mongrel brainy?
Yeah. Mine's the one with horns. But yeah, I mean, probably we'll be able to figure it out. If nothing else, Cricket does have that medallion of the mind, which lets you communicate, so you can ask him which one they are. Or if you pull one out of the elder brain and Cricket goes what like that, clearly that was Cricket's. But we haven't got to that part yet because big fight about to happen. There's all these Mind Flayers. Some of them are allies, some of them are enemies. We don't know which is which yet. I mean, John put markers on them, but there's no way that the players would, or the characters would be able to know.
Yeah, you don't know which from which.
So we're like, okay, we're here to hit someone. Who do we hit? We don't know who we've been talking to.
Right.
They've been using trolls for all the talking. I don't know if Cricket even knows what Brian Flair looks like.
Right.
Probably not.
No.
Oh, no, I guess she would, because Brian Flair ate her brain.
Oh, that's true.
So you would know what
yeah,
Brian
I was
Flair
probably
looks like.
facing forward, though.
I guess so. I guess...
I don't know who ate my brain.
Potentially.
You were facing forward when your brain was eaten. You might have seen Brian Flair before.
Yeah. That's going to be an awkward conversation, I think. So, you ate my brain, huh?
Yeah, you gave me some good ideas about the future.
Yeah. Well, you're welcome, I suppose.
Would you like to own a share?
No. No, he took her joyriding. That's wrong.
Well, maybe no, forgiveness.
Once all this is over, I'm gonna put a club in my horns.
That's pretty much where you left off.
Yeah, I
spent 15 minutes laying out the battle board and then it was time to end.
Yeah.
That's fine. It's fine. It'll take way less time next time because I got all the things ready.
Yeah. That was a good way to impress on just how big a fight it is we're about to have. There's 20 Mind Flayers out there.
And a giant brain.
Yeah. And they're all on different sides and who knows what.
Yeah, it was interesting. The party, for the first time in a long time, seemed actually concerned about, okay, we got to be careful here.
Yeah.
Because they hadn't got a chance to rest for a long time.
Yeah.
They're running out of dailies. But Cricket and Gerard are crit monsters.
Right.
I mean, Serendipity and Gerard are crit monsters.
Yeah.
Which is huge. But they're running out of stuff.
Yeah.
So they're running low on healing surges.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They gotta not
we
take hits.
We didn't actually get a chance to do that rearrangement thing, so we're still...
Yeah, Hank doesn't have any, does he?
We did do the initial rearrangement.
And Cross is like, I have 16.
That's the initial rearrangement where we took Croesus' 16 and distributed them to Hank and Cricket. And then Hank and...
And then they had to punch through those.
Yeah.
Cross is only slightly bitter about that.
Yeah, he is a little bit. He is, in fact, a little bit bitter about that, yeah. Those are my healing surges. I want them back now.
You can't be trusted.
Yeah. No, it's an interesting situation we're in, and it's going to continue to be interesting because if we win this, we still have made a deal that a bunch of these guys are coming with us.
Yeah.
And
I want Brian Flair to become a PC.
The thing about time travel is, you have to find time rifts where they exist, and take them where they go. So it may not be a straight hop from here to the future where we can drop these guys off.
You may have to
they're going to be with us for a little while.
For a little while.
Yeah. And I mean, and they need us to succeed.
Yeah.
So maybe they'll help us out.
Yeah, they'll help restore Cricket to existence.
Yeah, they'll help us out on this plot because it's in their interest too. And then we'll leave them.
Have you reset the tower yet?
No. It's still 9 blocks down. We haven't had an extended rest. That was another thing I was concerned about. That's why we were being so careful about killing anyone. Don't kill anyone, because we were already 9 blocks down.
And they know that too.
Yeah. And I mean, and now we're gonna have this big fight to determine the future of these mind flayers. There could be Jenga pulls no matter who wins this one.
Yeah. That's pretty funny.
Yeah.
So if you can leave it so it feels more or less the same, like the ones that you don't like, you knock them out and leave them here, because then they get left here.
Yeah. The time tower is gonna crush them.
Then they'll get killed anyway, and it's all fine. And then the few that like
no one needs to know
that wanted to make a deal with you,
you
can take away.
We can take the wusses as well if they want to.
Some of them are, the
diehards will die hard, and the rest will come with us to the future. And I'm sure Croesus is going to be really happy about the concept of just taking a bunch of mind flayers saying, "Go, be free," into the future.
Now, don't need any more brains.
Yep. They're like, "Oh, we promise we won't." It's interesting though, because the Brian Flayer at least knows that Croesus can't really be trusted to keep a deal like this,
right?
Because of what he did to those dwarven terrorists back in the Ood lands. They made a deal with those dwarves, and then Croesus turned them in anyway.
Right.
So the Ood are going to be particularly cautious of Croesus there.
But in this case, didn't Croesus actually participate in the deal? Because that time he claimed that Aurora made a deal with the dwarves. He made no deal with them, and they should be brought to justice. Now, that was a pretty lame justification.
Yeah.
But it's still, there was some justification.
Yeah.
Technically correct is the best kind of correct.
And I mean, also, there's no actual authorities here.
Right.
Except maybe
Croesus.
Not Croesus. Corbland. I mean, this is his mountain range, but
Certainly
I'm
not
pretty
active.
sure Croesus is not going to take these guys before Corbland and say, "We need a trial, sir."
Yeah, I don't know if he would just straight up kill them.
Yeah.
I mean, he killed those goblin, but he saw that as like
A mercy
them.
killing.
Yeah, mercy. But like.
Yeah, no, I
because I think he was involved in the deal. I think he'll have a harder time weaseling out of that one.
No, I'm not really expecting him to just try and kill the mind flayers, but I'm also not expecting him to be terribly happy about anything that's going on.
I mean, they are mind flayers.
Yeah.
I mean, they have a little bit of sympathy for them because they now, like, the party knows now that the Elder Brain is kind of repressing them and smacking them down and treating them poorly. So
but they still ate an awful lot of brains.
Sort of like citizens under Nazi rule or something, right?
Yeah.
They're like, they kind of were oppressed by the government and it was scary, but they also kind of played along. They're certainly not blameless, but they're maybe not like...
You can't kill them all.
Yeah.
So that's where the situation is.
Turns out that when Croesus and I aren't fighting, we make a really good team. Huh, go figure.
Well, I don't know that hitting everybody all at once made things start making sense, per se, but, at least my friends are all friends again, so that's better. Maybe if we just hit everyone else more, things will make more sense. It's worth a try.
So we walk into the room and it's a giant swimming pool full of gray brain goo. Well, this is just gross.
I want my brain back. I need it.